Yeah, boom. We should be live and the direct in the tube with Arthur and Fiona. Greetings, guys. An honor once again to have you on. Fiona is back. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. It's been a
Good.
while.
Uh, yeah, it's been a while, and tonight we're together again to explore or implore that topic of intelligence, of super intelligence. Okay, and I was reflecting on it, and it came clear to me. Okay, in the last few days, just by thinking that if I want to be intelligent, I will sit in front of the TV and spoon fed myself all kinds of nonsense from the Babylonian world and the world out there and everything. I will be consuming all kinds of nonsense so that I become intelligent. But now there's two sides. If you want to have intelligence, which I think is very different from being intelligence and having intelligence, it's two different things to me. Now you will look to nature. You will turn to nature. You will start to observe the patterns of nature. You will start opening up your eyes to the light in the world and remove your freaking sunglasses and all that nonsense and look at the sun and look at the astral bodies and everything that surrounds you. And that will give you intelligence. Not so being intelligent, you tell me you're intelligent, okay? And it's you, Arthur, that told me that in the past. When you say you're intelligent, you're an intel agent. I remember that too. It came back to me. I said, Arthur told me intelligent was intel agent. So then I'm started thinking, yeah, if I have intelligence, wow, I'm brilliant now because I can observe the pattern around me, the nature. I can observe others, human being like me also, and listen to them. You know, when your natural state of being is to listen, not only to talk. Me, I talk a lot, I know,
Mm.
but your natural state should be to listen because you should learn here on earth. You should have a good learning attitude. But when you think you're intelligent, you know it all. So what do you have to learn? Freaking nothing. You know it all. So you're intelligent already. So maybe you guys can extend on it the difference between intelligent and intelligence, or if I'm completely off with this topic, maybe. But that's how it feels in my heart. Like if I want to have intelligence, I have to look into nature.
Well, I've one thing, a sort of slight side notice, I've certainly noticed more and more, I think, how you say we have to listen. And I think we are all becoming worse and worse at actually listening to each other. It's like so many conversations, it's just everyone's thinking of what they want to say next. And, so, okay, I just got to wait till they finish and then I can say what I want to say, or then we interrupt because we're so desperate to get out what we want to say. But in fact, that means we're not actually just being present in the moment of listening to what someone is saying. And I think it's very much a cultural thing. I know, like the Japanese culture, they're very much more. I had a student once, I used to teach English, and he said, in Australia, this is where in Australia, a conversation is like having a tennis match. It's like bang, 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 bang,
Yeah.
bang. Whereas in Japan, I think it's much more like not nearly as combative, as it were, more quiet and listen and take time and pause and respond. Whereas, and I think it's part of this, our brains going faster and faster and faster and faster with more and more and more information. And we just sort of, we can't just stop and slow down and actually listen to what the other person is saying, which also involves sensing the other person. Where are they really coming from? What are they really meaning? Because the words are fickle. They can so
Yeah.
easily be interpreted in so many different ways. And so to really get what someone wants to say to you, you've also got to be able to slow down and sense the intention behind it to get really what they mean. And I think that's with social media, you can see chats, people just without the extra sensory awareness or that you get from looking at someone, from their body language, from their posture, from their expression, from the look in their eyes. It is so easy to take a meaning and totally change it, because so much of our awareness and listening of someone is actually to do with all the other senses as well, the intuition we feel from them, their body language, how they look at us or not look at us, the sincerity, it's so much easier to tell. And I think this is why we've become more and more fragmented and argumentative, and this because we're not doing that so much, more and more online. You don't get all the other sensory parts of communication. And that's partly responsible for the explosiveness that is everywhere between people. People are so explosive about every little thing, like that offends me, this hurts me, blah blah blah. It's like, just calm down and try and sense what the other person's trying to say to you and where they're coming from.
Totally agree.
Oh, well, there's another thing you can look at as well, that the whole of the dream of life, nature, earth, celestial body, celestial space, is completely full of intelligence. It has a vast amount of information readily available in the present sense, in the here and now. And it's forever changing. It has life forms change from instant to instant. So being brought up in nature as children, we access this super intelligence. And it's not between our ears, it's our ability to expand the consciousness of what we're sensing as far and as wide as we can hold it, as we commune with the intelligence of life all around us. So we've gone from the peace and the calm of being a child in nature, communing with the super intelligence of life, of nature, to what Fiona has described. And until we can get back to that peace and calm, the real peace and calm, we're not going to have proper communication to be intelligent, because we're going to be faking everything about what we're still sensing, but we're not in communion with that super intelligence of nature.
Because it's actually effortless, I think, when I remember a teacher at one of the children's schools saying once, they were still in primary school, still young, and he was like, you guys are going to be doing the hardest thing there is. You're going to be learning. And I just thought, what a really stupid thing to say, because learning is only difficult when it's something you have no interest in, that's being forced down your throat, and you just don't care about it. And this is the problem with the system intelligence. It's all about learning facts. And so obviously there's a sort of finite number you can keep in your head of all these facts, especially because they're all to do with the fiction of the system. They're nothing to do with our sensory sort of awareness. And so that's why we have this, like, the finality of the edges of our learning, because it's like, there's only so much I can remember, there's only so much I can take on. And I think that's so different from the sensory awareness, which is just limitless.
Yeah, because when we need access to any information, it's already ready available to us. We don't have to remember anything about anything, because every life form holds the information and shares it with us as that super intelligence that's all around us all the time. And that's where it's like with what Fiona's describing, it's like we have to sit down, put on a record or a DVD or a CD or whatever, and listen to a soundtrack, or we go to the movies and sit in the seats and just, be caught up in the sensorama of visual imagery and sound. But this is nothing. It's basically like you put your little thumb and finger together. That's as far as we're going to experience the real power of the peace and calm and the joy. Because when we do it from nature itself, and we're connecting with that super intelligence in the present sense, the communion is so uplifting, it's so inspiring, because we're so in communion with everything, and we're so uplifted by the happiness and the joy, because these are natural things. Happiness and joy and freedom and all the other good heart virtues are natural things that emanate from the creativity when we're in relationship naturally, not disconnected from that super intelligence of life. And so that's why you see elements of in the Buddhism of that incredible peace and calm, the elements even in Christianity, where they touch on these things very lightly, because the real power of communication has got nothing to do with the words and the tongue, because we're not communing with life. We're communing with fiction, as fiction with fiction. You see, when we are communing with life, we are in attunement with living things, sharing the inspiration with us. And that inspiration can be even telling us about the weather changing, an earthquake coming. It can be all kinds of things that we haven't even thought about. So we are so asleep from the true power of that peace and calm, where we are totally connected with the super intelligence of life. We have no idea of the comprehension, just how incredibly transformative it is when the world, as we touched on last week's video, there's so much that goes on around us in the world out there that has nothing to do with our everyday life here and now, where we are in the present sense of our life. So when we are connected with that present sense and we're communing with nature, we get so fulfilled. Children are so fulfilled, but we don't even think about it as, oh, look, our child's fulfilled, because there's no reference point to being fulfilled. It's just an ongoing expansion of the super intelligence of life as man, who we are. So I think that until we get back to that, which is what we're working on, why we're creating the Kingdom Village, is to get the infrastructure of the village up and running, so we can begin to reconnect, defrost from the system fiction. So we're not fiction talking with fiction. Look, there's so many conversations going on. Even you and I talking now, and Fiona talking. We're talking from fiction to fiction. We're not actually in communion with life. And when we talk about referencing what our observations of life is, what our perceptions are, even all of that is fiction. It ain't real. So how can we even begin to experience the true beauty of life and be that while we're still lost in communing with fiction? You follow what I'm saying? Because everything defined to us is fiction. And the language we talk is fiction. Every all the interconnections of that fiction, we call it English, you can call it French, Greek, Latin, whatever you want to call it. It's fiction. It has nothing to do with the life form behind it. There's no life form communing with us. And we're not communing with life either in doing it.
I totally agree with you. And I think the proof is in nature, because animals don't need words to talk to each other. I could easily live with my dog and not speak to her a single word, and we would still vibe together. Like, so the words and the whole alphabet and the 1 2 3 ABC 1 2 3, for sure it's there to mess with our eyes, because also if God or the super intelligence wants to reach to you, it will not be with words. Like, come on, that's super nonsense. If you think God's gonna come to talk to you in words, I think it comes in give you signs, whether it's synchronicity or stuff. And the other day I was on the bike path with my bike, and something really astonishing and beautiful happened to me. And this kind of thing you start observing once you start having a bit more intelligence and less in the matrix, less dommified by the matrix. Now you start to realize the pattern and you notice things. And the other day I was on the bike path, and a sun ray, the sun was there, big blue sky, and there was a sun ray that was reaching all the way to my eyes from the sun for about 10-15 minutes along the bike path, right in my eyes. I had the sunlight in my eyes. Like, I was so impressed. I was like, wow, that's beautiful. Directly from the sun, you could see the ray from the sun in the sky, boom, to my eye. And I'm sure it did happen to you probably before. It happened, the sun shines for everyone. Not just for me on the bike path. It shines for everyone. But if you're in tune with the stuff of nature and you start to work in the favor of nature and not in the favor of the matrix, well, nature will come and support you and give you sign and communicate with you and tell you you're on the right path or the wrong path. Or if you're on the wrong path, maybe something bad will happen to you. If you're on the right path, maybe something beautiful happen, like this, that the sun come and hit you with his sun rays. And or to me it was magical. It's like the other day the moon was super big in the sky, and I was feeling like a huge vibration from it. I don't know if it's just me that feel these stuff, but I feel nature very deeply, especially when I'm outside in nature. That here so much in between my four unfractal building walls. But still, when you go out, observe nature, observe the pattern of nature, the animals around. And the other day, there was a little fox. I stopped on the bike path just to talk to the little fox. I know, nonsense, because words they don't understand. But still, I had fun. And yeah, all those experiences, I think, will help you to grow your intelligence if you look.
Well, they're a little. It's a little mishmash of little tiny bits. I mean, we're in a system of overlords who have this education system that's compulsory, and we have a whole world of laws and statutes and that compel us, that where we acquiesce and comply to so many different fictions to make up the creative life we live in fiction. But that creative life is very misguided. In fact, you only have to look at everyone that's coming out of university, those who are in government, those who are in the rule of law, and you look at the collective of all the decision making, of all this creativity, and how we're seeing mountains being obliterated. We're seeing the ocean being destroyed. We're seeing nature turning into barren landscapes of just toxic pollution. You know, it goes on and on and on. This creative journey that we're on through fiction is all fake. It ain't the real one. So even the relationships we have with each other, even that what is played out in social media and in mainstream media, and all the controversies and dramas, and he done that and she did that and they did that and that, you know, and all the conspiracy theories, and it is all the malpractice of living in a creative life of fiction. It's absurd. We've so lost the plot, and until we can, at the local level where we live, can unplug from this fiction and stop playing out the relationship we have with fiction, and stop communing with fiction, and start returning to the present sense of nature, and start being upfilled again, just being inspired, and by the air we breathe that's so pure, the sunlight and the atmosphere that creates the sunlight, by the way. It's a whole life force of living things between where we are now and what we see as the sun and the light that comes between. It's nowhere we can go in nature where that life force intelligence is not. So that super intelligence that comes into your eyes, as you listen to it and feel the information, it will give you so much fulfillment. Not in terms of returning from fiction to a dead nothing place to something. Now we got something. It's like we're forever putting one record to another record on the record player. We're constantly in a symphony of music, but it's not fiction. It is a constant playing of sounds, whether it's birds, insects, creatures, the breeze, the sunlight. It's so much information that's being shared with us, but we're so shut down with fiction, we don't know anymore what the horse is telling us. Generally speaking, we don't know anymore what anything is telling us. Now, when we start sensing the intentions and communing with the intentions, this is how we start to return back and start fixing it. But we cannot rely on the fiction or the relationships we have with fiction and all the conversations with fiction to solve the issue of the fragmented peace and calm that we each meant to be. So we don't play out that chaos of fragmentation with another man or a life form. The only reason why we're playing out this fragmented destruction is because we're so lost in the fiction and communing in the fiction. Going back to what Fiona talked about at the beginning of this chat, we are talking so much nonsense, and we're so fake. Who we are is not who we are. Who we are, what we think in our head is completely alien to who we really are. But we don't even know who we really are anymore because we're so lost in fiction. The voices in our head, the conversations, the chatting, the ABC 123 coming at us, and how many avenues of ABC 123 are coming at us all the time. I mean, I only have to watch how we live in the house on how compromised we are by this, yet alone, out in the workforce, and I've got to make money. I've got to get food on the table. I've got to get my kids through school. Or, I want to be seen as a good citizen, and I want to have entertainment, so I'm going to go and see a rock band. But all of this is fake.
I think we've been so trained in the fiction to the self-obsession that the big trap is that we start going out in nature because we want to get in tune with nature. But if we're not careful, we make that a self-obsession as well, you know. Oh, my relationship with nature, my learning to be at one with nature, my this, and it's still all about me, mine. I think this is one of the biggest traps for everybody, is that, you know, they're trying to become conscious, they're trying to do this, trying to do that, but it's still all going around in their heads, and it's still all about them, because that's what we've been trained to do right from the very beginning, start everything being about us. And so we can't be conscious when we're thinking about us, because being conscious is about the awareness of everything out there around us in the natural world. So if we're thinking about us, how can we be conscious of that? And this is where we've been trained with the intellect in the system, is to be very caught up in, you know, those thoughts in our head that we think, that we rationalize, and, you know, there's proof of this and proof of that, and this is right and da. But none of it is about actually the awareness of out there, because it's all about what we know, what we think, what we've learned, what we are right about. And this is, I think, the biggest trap that they have over us, is that it's very, very, very hard, if not almost impossible, being brought up as we are, to let go of that self-obsession, that it's all about us. I mean, you know, you had an experience with a sun ray, and I'm not trying to be mean about this, but maybe it was not to do with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, that's what I mean. But we tend to go, and we've all done it lots of times. Oh, I had this experience, and we make it all about us straight away. You know.
Yeah.
That's all fiction. That's all fiction. Anything we're reflecting on us is fiction. The other thing too, we can actually talk ourselves into peace and calm. We can go to a weekend, retreat where no one talks, right? And everyone can get into peace and calm. The thing is, it's still a fiction, because it's not the real peace and calm, because the real peace and calm is so vivid with communication with the superintelligence. It's not like we've become silent. We have more in connection. And in that connection, we receive so much stimulation of real life. And because when we are amongst real life, we're breathing it, we're drinking it, we're smelling it, we're hearing it and seeing it. That is a real peace and calm. It's the real connection. It's not the peace and calm in the fiction where we think we've got ourselves silent in between the ears, but we have no superintelligence connection. None of it's happening. I've met so many people who claim that they've had these weekend workshops. I don't see anything different. It's just another fad that's coming and going.
I reckon the only way to do it actually now currently is really, you would have to go away by yourself, totally immerse yourself in nature, and just not have any contact for a while. And it would probably take months before everything stopped running round and round and round and round your head all the time. Yeah. But then eventually I think you would, you'd forget about yourself. And I mean, having said it's impossible, I think I've certainly had odd moments, that moment when you realize you've just been immersed in what you're doing and you haven't been thinking, you haven't been so focused on everything running around your head. And I guess that is it, when you get those moments when you're just focused on something, so you're not bringing it back to you all the time and what you think about it, what you feel about it, whatever. And that's the challenge, to sustain that on a constant basis. And it's doubly hard when you're surrounded by people who bring us back to that constant time. Oh, what are you thinking? What do you want? What do you do? We bring each other back all the time, because the day-to-day mundanity of life. Oh, we got to do this now. It's time for this now. This happens. And then with each other and people around us, we talk again. And so that brings us back to us all the time.
And there's no peace and calm in that. There's no real freedom. We're still spoon-fed slaves in the system. It's a placebo effect. We have, when I had when I had the 2 weeks sleep back in 2012, I don't know where I was and when I came to and all that, but the senses were so heightened, and I noticed the ability to connect with things was just so amazing. But that also went away too. And why I'm bringing it up is because when we reflect from I, me, my, that we are in the fiction. We're in the conversation of fiction, talking with fiction about fiction. You see, and so the thing is that you have to go to a world of fiction to communicate. Otherwise, you're an alien. If you go to nature and all you know is fiction, and you're a scientist, you're not going to really work out what the hell's really going on. You're not going to know at all, and there will be no connection. It will all be fake because we have developed a library of opinions and ideas, and because we've observed things and we've explained it the way we've explained, all these are fictions as well. And because we arrive into science through the universities, adding to whatever else has been added to books that we've been reading to get our degrees to become the scientists. And even when we're looking through binoculars and telescopes and we're observing life as experts with titles, we're still not connecting with the superintelligence, because the conversation in here, the chit chat, the fiction is so rich in conversation. It's just so much going on, you know. So it's the radio's full of it. The whole library is full of it. The television is full of it. All the social media is full of this. You're not going to find the answers in the fiction amongst fiction. It's just not going to happen.
I like a lot what you brought up there, because a lot of us have found ourselves in front of YouTube at one point in 2014-15, learning about this old flat earth thing, you know. So that's a good point that you bring, because if you said also earlier that everything you need to know is already here and now, it's in your DNA, it's within you, just get to tune yourself with the proper alignment with nature, and all the answers will come. So why exactly now it makes sense why we are fed all this nonsense through YouTube, also with the flat earth and all that shit, because the other day I was looking at their sun model exactly after like noticing the sunset difference, 2 hours difference between Jamaica and Canada. I went to look at their model. It doesn't make sense. So, you know, none of it makes sense. Even in their flat earth explanation or whatever explanation they want to give us of their fiction, it doesn't make sense. So what makes sense is when you look at nature, what happens in nature in real time.
We've got to protect the kids from being exposed to fiction. The more that we can create, for us, it's a transition thing. The way we look at it, to, you know, we don't want to start up more and more small fires to put out this big one we've already got called fiction. So when children are given the true freedom in a community, in a village, with nature all around, whether we've restored it or whether it's already there, their connection without the fiction in here, because when I came out of that 2 week sleep, there was nothing happening in here. There was complete dead silence in my head. I didn't hear it. I was exposed to all this sensorama, and it was incredible. I couldn't explain because I had not experienced this. This is the first time I've ever sort of come to this. It was like a near-death experience in some ways, but
yeah.
But what I'm getting at is that when children are given that freedom to allow the superintelligence to absorb, that's what God is. We're allowing God to fill us. What people call the Holy Spirit, which really is the senses. It's the natural communion with life itself. Because the Creator lives in present sense. It's an eternal, living, present sense God, if you want to look at it that way. It's not something in the future or the past. It's not a he or a she. It's just an incredible dynamic, which is undescribable. You cannot circumvent it. You just can't limit it. And each child is the well, I don't want to use fictional word, but like the Godhead, it is in the likeness of God, brought up by nature, infilled by all that sensorama. And every child doesn't need to explain I, me, my, because it already is God. Why would it want to define itself and explain something to somebody else when it already is everything that it is? It doesn't need anyone else to tell it what it is, or whatever, and it's so intact. And when you have man and man and man and man all like that, it's incredibly powerful. It's nothing. The power of the nuclear warheads today in Palestine and Donald Trump and all the frats of military, it's just, honestly, you can put your thumb and forefinger together That's the entertainment they can offer each other in the world through fear and paranoia and all the psychosis.
Yeah.
But when you get away from the limitation of fiction and you are in the present sense of life itself and in communion, which we can't lead. This conversation can never lead anyone to commune with nature. We may give the suggestion about it, but until what Fiona has described, until you can go out and unplug from this, so you get that dead silence. Because what replacing the dead silence is an incredible sound of life. You can when I was relearning to walk from that 2-week sleep, I could read signs on transport vehicles a kilometer away. The fine print, I could read it all. And I'm going, wow. And then I could tune into conversations with people walking at least a kilometer away and zoom in and listen to their conversation. So I knew that the sensory connection was extremely powerful. What we're capable of is incredible. And then I had this X-ray vision where I could see in people's bodies and see everything. Now, this was all faded away because I wanted. It was too much responsibility for me. I freaked out experiencing these things. But a child brought up with that super intelligence already has all this. But mine was a limited experience, extremely limited. When we are truly connected, it's you cannot even put it in all the library books in the world. It's just, another way to look at it, when a dog comes and sniffs our butt, the information that dog has picked up through its senses in those few sniffs, you couldn't contain it all in all the libraries in the world because it carries such a big picture of such vivid information. Now, we've fallen from all of this because all we've got is the chit-chat of fiction. Oh, it's a dog. It's this and it's that. Oh, it's having a smell. The amount of unfolding scripts within scripts within scripts within scripts of fiction that explains what's been explained leaves us trapped in the matrix. We're not going to get out. No matter as much as we think it's the truth, it ain't the truth. It may appear to get us so close to the truth, but we've never been close to the truth. Otherwise, why are we doing so much harm? Why are we causing so much harm to what we are?
I get a good one for you. Why say man was created in the image of God? What is that?
They're just words. I think.
Explain that to me. Man is created in the image of God.
Well, that's because
I heard that.
Because I was brought up through Christianity as Greek Orthodox, and Fiona would have been exposed to some form of it through her upbringing, and we've all been exposed to various things. So I don't believe in any God. There is no God as such. So I don't look at it that, because the super intelligence of everything that's of life itself is this, and you can't carve it up and put it, paint in a box and give it a personality and tell it it's got a beard and it's none of this stuff. I mean,
but I would say that to say man is in the image of God is to say that we all have full responsibility for our lives and for the life around us. It's not that, I don't know why the Bible says that really, because they have this, patriarchal figure up the top. But if you take it as if we're all God, we're all the creators of everything around us. Well, and so we are responsible for everything that we create. And I think more and more people are losing this as they blame everybody else for everything that ever happens to them. But the older I get and the more I experience, the more I can not blame anybody for anything that has happened to me in my life, because it's all a result of the choices that I have made every moment, every step of the way. Every day we get up, we make choices moment by moment. And in our lives, we make big choices or we make smaller choices, but we make those choices. At every situation, we have a chance to walk away, a chance to stay, a chance to change direction, a chance to say something different, a chance to do something different. And every step of the way, we make those choices. So that makes us truly the gods of our lives. And we truly cannot blame somebody else for what happens to us. I think obviously when a child blame others for what happens to them because they are, they're stuck in a situation they're born into until they get to the age they can make their own choices. But as soon as you are old enough, your life is a result of the choices you make, and you cannot blame anybody else for the situation you find yourself in.
So it's fair to assume that I am a God.
you're the creator of your life.
I'm not your God. I'm not the
No,
God, but I am a
Well,
God.
we're all at the effect
it's
of
just
each
a
other and what we're
word.
creating as well. We
Mm.
are in a collective co-creation. There's no doubt about that, because everyone as man is at the effect of every other man, even regardless of distance and that. I mean, you pollute the water, you affect everyone who drinks the water. You pollute the air, you're going to affect everyone who breathes the air. You damage the earth, and you're going to affect everything that has relationship to that earth. So we are all connected in that way. We're not individuals. So God, and also in the breakdown of the codes of the English alphabet letters, which is what was described in the old bibliographies, going right back to the old autobiographies written by archbishops and bishops. Letter G means the highest authority, the highest power.
Okay.
So when we talk about God, it's the ultimate power. So because there is no patriarch, we have this idea that there's a ruler above us, as in monotheism. It's played out in everyday life, as above, so below. So we have a pope, we have an archbishop, we have a bishop, we have a priest acting as the representative of that archetype, of that patriarchal image, right? So we become assimilated into accepting these kind of pyramid constructs of organization, because that's what the Roman Catholic Church is. That's what the Jesuits are. That's what the Church of England has been. And that's what every other institution that's ever been invented by those behind the fiction, and how they're enforcing on everyone else. Because remember, everyone across it are the descendants of original tribal and villages that were invaded. And then came multiculturalism and immigration, all the other things that happened, and then the mishmash of fiction and waves of fiction coming at us all the time. So God is, what Fiona said is correct. It means full responsibility for our life, meaning we should never do harm. And you can only do that through the super intelligence, because you can't do it through fiction. Because we have billions of us today communing sincere intentions of do no harm in 1,001 ways. Yet all the time we talk about whatever it is we talk about of do no harm, we're doing harm. We're all doing harm. All at the same time as we talk about not doing harm.
So while we're rescuing animals, we are creating the conditions that means the animals need to be rescued. While we're saving the forests, we're still creating and living the conditions that mean that forests are destroyed. So it's like everything is the result of us and our actions. So
Okay.
I mean, while it's great that we save forests and save animals and all that, it's our lifestyle that has put them in the position that they're in, that needing to be saved.
Hold on. Maybe as a mother, you can also answer my next question, because if we're damaging the earth, we keep disrespecting the earth, which we call Mama Earth. She nurtures us. You have children. You have been nurturing them. I have children on my own too. At one point, when the disrespect is too much, you pull back. And you're like, okay, you want to disrespect me? You're gonna eat in a friggin' box. You're gonna eat Kraft Dinner. You don't want to respect what I cook for supper? We're gonna eat in a box. So you see what's happening in nature is the same today. It's we're disrespecting nature. What most people do, eat in a box. So the same phenomenon can also be applied to us versus nature. That's my point. So have you ever felt probably like you were disrespected? Definitely, because children do that. But also, did you have ever felt the need that maybe if you pull back a little bit, they will start respecting you more, and maybe, like I said, give them box food, and at one point they will
Well, I
be
think
grateful for what you cook, what you put on the table, what you go work for and prepare. And because as a woman, you're busy every time, especially if you're working out in a baby loan, you're busy with the children, you're busy with the housework, with I know, I have a wife, I live with her, and she's sometimes overwhelmed. So by the responsibility also that comes with having children. So now on top of it, you have to nurture them, and you feel disrespected at times. So it's, I don't know from a woman perspective how you see this, but maybe you can
Well, the thing
share
is,
with us.
what I would say as well, I mean, there's no perfect parent because we're all the result of non-perfect parenting and growing up in this world of fiction. And so while, there's very, very few parents out there that would want to harm their children. So most of us are absolutely doing the best we can with what we know. But unfortunately, because we also bring to parenthood the problems that we have within ourselves. So you can also say that possibly you're creating that disrespect in your children because of what you have brought. If you're not careful, a lot of parenting also contains all the insecurities and needs and wants and desires of the parents that are not fulfilled or whatever. So that gets transferred onto the children. And so the reactions of the children, maybe in disrespect or whatever, are often a result of what we have instilled in them anyway, which can be from disrespect between partners, disrespect to yourself, disrespect, and absolutely, I think they should be taught that that's not a right way to do it, but we got to look at why are they acting like that anyway? Because, I mean, it's like, and we create, I've seen a few times as I've had teenage girls a lot, and other mothers with teenage girls who are really acting out in terms of being very backchat, very rude and snipey, and I've seen the mothers not do anything, stand back and they just want to be their friend and make it okay for them. But what I think to them, it's like if they don't turn around to their daughters and say, hey, I don't like the way you're talking to me. So if you keep talking to me like that, we are going to go home, or I'm going to go home. You have a choice to get in the car and come with me. Now, in that way, because if the mothers don't do that, they are not showing their teenage daughters how to stand up for themselves. If the mother doesn't stand up for herself, she is not modeling to her teenage daughter how to stand up for herself if someone starts treating her with disrespect. So this is, in fact, is the responsibility of parenthood, is modeling, and of course, so much parenting is do as I say and do as I say and not as I do, when really, of course, parenting, we shouldn't actually have to say anything because we're modeling the behaviors that we want all the time. But because we all bring our problems and our shit to our parenting, to our relationships, to our parenting, we so often are not modeling those behaviors. But so yes, to disrespect, I think children absolutely have to be told not to disrespect, but just going in their face and saying, don't disrespect me, doesn't work. What they need to see is you respecting yourself, and therefore you're saying, no, I don't accept your behavior. And you're not threatening them, you don't give them this, you just say, okay, probably you're their taxi, you're their dishwasher, you clean for them, you cook. So in the sense of what you said, you withdraw a little. It's like, yes, if you're going to treat me with disrespect, then, I don't actually have to get in the car and drive you to netball practice. I don't actually have to make you dinner tonight. I don't actually have to do your laundry if they haven't learned to do it themselves already. So in that, the withdrawing of that is like, it's not, I think what I'd like to stress, it's not an emotional withdrawal or a cruelty withdrawal. It's like, you know what, I can withdraw my services to you if I want to. So,
that's what I was saying.
You can keep talking to me that way, but you might find me a little less cooperative and a little less helpful in your life. Can I just
point this out? We've had hundreds of generations through our ancestors to us who talk and think about these things. Nothing's changed. We've created more mess today. This whole, look, I'm going to be honest about this whole thing of respect, and that is a load of bullshit. Because until we solve the problem of fiction coming at our children left, right, and center as a constant, the seduction of the fiction is going to influence our kids. It's going to influence us as it influenced our parents and great-grandparents. We can't try to model something beautiful that's super intelligent out of fiction is impossible, because it's still fiction. It's going to be a false idol. It's going to be just something that's totally fake. It takes complete withdrawal from the whole of this fiction to begin to restore the true respect we have for life, because it's out of that respect for life, which is a natural thing, just the same as joy and happiness. It comes from the creativity of the inspirations of superintelligence as it flows through us, as we flow with it. That's where it all gets fixed. And it's there that we solve it. But all this time while Fiona's talking about this, and I'm talking about this is just compromise. She's going to be a hypocrite, as I'm going to be a hypocrite, as you're going to be a hypocrite, because all this time we're talking about this kind of conversation. There are tens of thousands of seductions of fiction coming at us constantly, to our kids, to us, to everyone around us. And until we stop giving our energy to this thing, and this is why you got to withdraw. You have to withdraw from the system of this. But to do that, and not to start up small fires and more to keep yourself distracted, you need to build a way of life to give you that peace and calm and freedom, so you can begin to dismantle everything else going on in here and all the avenues coming at us. I mean, people say that, all the powers that be behind the British Empire and the Freemasons and the Roman Catholic Church, and you look at their history, and they say they love us, that God loves us, that Jesus loves us and all that. We've never been loved. We've never been loved because we've not experienced the true peace and calm of the real paradise way of life, because the whole thing is fake. It's always been about rape, pillage, and plunder, use, and abuse. It's all about power and control and all these other things. And, we can play out the respect with our children, which is another form of power and control. The only thing we could do, to me,
I like this.
The greatest thing that we can do is to create the paradise. This is what I talked about in last week's video. To create
this,
to turn this 27 acres for us into a paradise, so that we're actually in a paradise that nurtures us as that through that super intelligence. Right, the water's moving. You hear the sound of water wherever you go on the property. We've created food forests, botanical gardens, organic gardens, orchards, feather-friendly environments, native habitats. We're creating, all kinds of things that give us life. Because the whole goal of creating the paradise is to shut down all this, shut down everything. I mean, at some point, Fiona and I know that once we reach a certain point, we're going to disconnect Starlink. We're going to disconnect the mobile. We're going to disconnect all these things, because it is all part of the problem. So while we talk about our children, we seem to forget about all the other things that are stuffing our children, because it stuffed us. And here we are trying to make something a good role model for our children. We can never be a good role model for our children while we're lost in fiction, because there's no love there. We don't love our children. We say we love them, but we don't love them. We say we love nature, but we don't love nature. We say we love each other. We say we love Aussies and we love Canadians. We love Americans. That we love this and that, but we don't. We give each other so much attrition through fiction. There's so much suffering as a result of this. There's so much sickness. The big pharmaceutical corporations, the amount of big pharma dollars, it's all a byproduct of all these fictions coming at us and the sickness that's growing and growing. We don't love life. If we love life, we would say no, push back and turn our back on all this stuff.
And we're in so deep as well, and that's part of the enmeshing layers upon layers upon layers that have happened all over the time of this encroachment of fiction in our lives, that it's like they've got to a point that unless you're going to sort of live totally cut off or in the wilderness or just in a totally cut off little community, it is almost impossible to live lives without doing any sort of harm. I watched a bit of a Senate debate in America or something, and they were talking about plastic, and someone saying, oh yeah, we're all for giving up plastic. And then the other guy started to point out just the areas where it sounds great. Let's give up plastic. We all hate plastic because it lasts forever, doesn't break down. But the amount of everything else that would come to a halt, because then they were talking and said, oh, but the production of cars, you can't make a car these days without plastic. So you ban the plastic, then all the car manufacturing shut down. Then those areas where everybody's livelihood relies on the car manufacturing, those local areas are decimated because suddenly no one's got any job. It's like the fiction is so enmeshed in our lives that it's when you start looking like that, you go, oh yeah, we'll give up plastic, fantastic. You suddenly look and go, but to give up plastic has to change everything about the way we're living. Food production, how much food is packaged in plastic because it works. It keeps the food fresh. There is nothing else. That means you can send food all over the world, which means, okay, so we can't send food all over the world anymore. Even some of your organic, wonderful products, they have to be packaged in plastic. So that means, oh, so we've got to go right back to local for all our food. Oh, damn, that means I can't eat coconut anymore, because coconuts don't grow here. And you just start looking
That's
at
what I'm drinking now. Coconut water. You think it grows in Canada?
Exactly. So, you truly want to go, you've got to give up that coconut water. And I love coconuts, and we don't have coconuts growing here. Exactly. And that's, I think, part of what really stops so many people. They get to this fact of, oh my God, look how we're living. We have to stop this. But the actual reality of really stopping all the harm being done is monumental. Like, it's so huge, because literally it is. It just, every area of our lives, there's something that's doing harm.
There's times Arthur showed up here and he has blown my mind with stuff that I will always remember till the day I die. And I think tonight you just said something that is very, very paramount here in this talk, okay? And I wrote it down. You've never been loved. You've never been loved because you have never experienced love.
Because we act as fiction. We act as fiction. There's no love in fiction.
Arthur. This is big.
And they're just words. It's all words. We don't. Look, all the time Fiona talked about the plastic. And Fiona pointed out to me earlier today when we were doing our walks and that around the property. She pointed out that in their science they found plastic all in the snow up in Mount Everest. It's just like when they did the experiments in Switzerland with the rainwater, and they found that the woman's pill was in the rainwater in Switzerland. This is like 20 years ago. It's like it is. We have created such a nightmare of desecration to life that what is coming to us, the tsunamis that are going to come at us now, the waves of volcanic eruptions, because I'm talking about trying to heal, we have gone so far beyond what we would consider as, well, we can stop now and reset, we can fix it. We've gone past all this. I
think you were saying earlier when you brought up the whole thing with children and parenting, at what point does Mother Earth say, enough? Enough.
I was going to bring it up, but I let you talk. But I think she's giving us signs.
Well, I think Mother Earth, if you want to look at it like that, is saying, I love life, so I'm going to wipe all of you out.
Yeah.
And that's how much she'll love life, because that's the full responsibility to protect what we say that we love. And that goes to last week's video when we chatted about this love thing, and that's where God, when you talk about God and responsibility, that love is God, and that is full responsibility. We are fully responsible for everything we do. And yeah, sure, we're hypocrites. Yes, we're all this and that. This is not about, like if someone posted a comment to one of the videos that I put up, saying that, well, how do you know, Arthur, that our ancestors were in paradise? That was what he was implying. And I haven't replied, because the simple reason is that until you truly wake up to this, you won't know. I could say anything. I could explain all kinds of things here. But until you become that godliness, each of us, that full responsibility, then we will know how life was once ago, before all this started. Because how can you create nature like this, earth like this, in its, what we see, the remnants of its beauty still now? It's incredible. How can we have been brought up in the dark ages like that long ago, when children were brought up in the magnificence of life itself, of nature, amongst everyone else stimulated by that super intelligence? You'll realize that the lies, and they lied and lied about, the dinosaurs and ice ages and all these. There's so much bullshit theories and opinions being made up. The fact is, we each carry the paradise, peace and calm, happiness and joy. We each carry it. If we want to keep it dormant, then just keep staying in fiction and be lost and be mesmerized, pulled left, right, and center by what fiction wants, Because remember, all fiction are thus the intentions of another man working on you. It's just the intentions of another man. That's what all fiction is. Just the intention of a man seeking power and control over you.
Well, that's actually, you just made me think then of what we all just talked about earlier, the responsibility and being creators. And it's like, there is no paradise until we create it. And so there is no paradise in us unless we create it in ourselves, and there is no paradise around us unless we create it. So, we're clearly not creating paradise right now. We're clearly creating a mess. And the only little bits of paradise are to be found in what remains of the beauty of Earth. And that's it. So until but then this is where the difficulty is, that thing that we talked about earlier, that okay, so now we go, okay, but I have to create paradise in myself, and so now we obsess about us and how we're creating paradise and whether we're not. So we're just stuck because, okay, I've got to create paradise, but am I being paradise now? What do I have to do to create paradise? How am I paradise? How am I not paradise?
There's a lot of people running around.
It goes round and round.
Unconscious.
Exactly, same thing. But all around them is not consciousness, so they're not conscious. It's just, this is the trap again. We're trapped. It's like whichever way we want. And so many people now are waking up, as it were, to a lot of lies, deception, whatever. But they just jump into another trap and another trap and another trap and another trap. And they're sincere in their intention, but you jump. There's always something. The system is so cleverly designed that there's always something for whatever avenue you want to go down. There's something there to grab you and keep you.
And that impurity, that insincerity, it is impure insincerity, because that self-centeredness and narcissism disguised as being conscious and being whatever. It's what creates the tsunamis. It's what creates the earthquakes. It's what creates all the devastation and the floods, because we're creating it, because it's all distortion. It's anti-life. And the more we give our energy to anti-life, no matter where we are attracting it. And collectively across all of Earth, we are obliterating everything. All the time we think that we're loving and kind and special. You go and find someone who says they love, and have a look at their life and see, are they in paradise? Or are they in the system of spoon-fed slaves, making ends meet the best they can while they're totally still unconscious of what they're supporting? All that fiction, how much fiction is caught up.
So I was just thinking, our fictional lives are stamped on top of the Earth. They're not part of Earth.
Yeah.
And just thinking about how we've just experienced flooding in our area, and not us, but further downriver, very severe flooding where people's homes destroyed, etc. And yet we've built homes in floodplains. And not only that, our lives have become so static and stationary, whereas there is nothing in nature that is static and stationary. But we've become so fixed that it's, if we were living more like tribes used to live and stuff, or more naturally on the land, if you're somewhere where the rain gets bad, you just move to where it's not, because you haven't got house, garage, car, electric, there's no way you can just up and move, because we have so much stuff, and our lives are so fixed in one area, so we can't move with nature, we can't flow with nature.
Kempsey is a fiction. The right region we're in, the men and women who decided to build Kempsey, that's their intentions. Why they decided to build it down into the floodplains and not away from the floodplains, you got to ask their intentions. What was behind it? See, it's all fiction again. And it wouldn't matter no matter what we talk about, where we go, it's always a man to the fiction. And it's always a man's intention that sets into motion what it is that we're experiencing as the material, physical form of fiction. This includes all the consumerism that comes with it. So the whole, if we had worked with the superintelligence, we wouldn't be building fictions down in floodplains, right? If that was, if that's what it was. So we wouldn't be. They're just, look, everything that's going wrong would all stop, because the intention to do no harm, to truly love, would put an end to all the things that made all the decisions, where cities were built, where technology and the progress of civilization was unfolding through the generations, the education, and the scale education, and the universities and all the sciences that are coming out of it, and all the engineering and all that, all this would come to an end. It would just like that, gone. We have to stop it, because you can't sustain life through fiction, because fiction itself already is anti-life. We've destroyed life to construct it. So we're relying on something already dead, right? Think about it. You go to a mountain that has full of life forms, go and alter and distort it all, because our intention is that our ideas are better than what life's already doing on the mountain, and we want to turn it into iron and other metals, and or chop down forests, and because we want to build. And the moment we start taking all the tall cedar trees down, we've exposed the second tier of all the eucalypts here in Australia. And now we have massive fire problems and maintenance of land, and we've got saplings coming up everywhere because we altered and affected the way life was working naturally, where everything was spacious, where you could journey through all these forests freely. We didn't have the clutter and the resource materials that would create immense bushfires. Look, there is no end to this conversation when we start talking about fiction and our relationship with fiction. All we can do is to withdraw at the local level and start creating a paradise amongst locals where everyone knows each other, where we don't need to bring food from overseas, where we can learn how to create the environment. We can learn how to grow things like coconuts. We are so capable of producing phenomenal things. We just don't know how it works because we've lost that super intelligence, all that access.
You just answered my question. I was going to ask you. I said I was going to tell you, listen, I find myself here on Earth. I know clearly what the evilest mankind plan is total destruction of the Earth. That's clear. They want to kill you. They want to kill every living thing slowly so they can profit out of you too. Now, what's the divine plan? Who puts the divine plan in place? What is the divine plan? Is it for us to wake up and realize? Because there's something happening. Some of us are waking up. But now it's the force of the good, God good, stronger than the evilest mankind that wants to destroy everything on earth?
Well, again, that's surely us. We have to decide to do that. I mean, just
or is this this fiction too?
He mentioned Everest before. Now, so many people know that there's this problem of the microplastics from all the Gore-Tex fabric on Everest. Are people stopping going to Everest? No. Why? Because their ego says, I want to go up Everest, or at least to base camp or whatever. That's, so that's what it comes down to. It comes to each of us deciding what we're prepared to sacrifice for the greater good of restoring nature.
Yeah, the divine plan is a script. So when you someone put the divine plan in your head, they gave you a script. That is fiction. There is no divine plan.
Okay, that's what I want to hear.
There isn't one.
Keep going.
You can't package love. You can't package God, because that's processed. That's fiction. We have been interfered with from when we appeared in the womb by fiction, because our parents became fictions. They're not real. They don't even know who they are or what they are. They don't even know what they're part of. Nobody knows what when you talk about the divine plan, it's just a big, apologies for my language, but it's a big wank. There is no divine plan that way. Love is not defined. You can't define it. It's not a journey to something to experience. It's something that's present to all of us all the time, but we have to allow it to be that. And that's what Fiona talk about. It's the choices, it's the decisions we make. But the bigger the picture that we can hold, which is what all the Love Life Work's been for the last 20 years, throughout all the videos and all the articles that we have been writing, is sharing insights into this phenomenon called fiction, the system, the matrix, the islands, the sirens on the island, with Ulysses on the mast, all these things that I've been touching on. We're just providing windows to look at the dilemmas that we each face. But until each of us changes the way we're living, changes the way we're thinking, changes our attitude, and we're willing to start to sacrifice, we won't even know what love is, because we're not being it. We don't love life. We love fiction.
You've got all these things on social media now that I see on Facebook and stuff, and there's so many podcast after podcast after podcast after podcast of people talking about really deep and meaningful things and awakening and conscious, and they're starting to talk about man and connection and so, but not one ever talks about the fiction and how what we have to give up if we are prepared to. So people seem to forget. It's all like, yes, we can all be well. Look at all these wonderful things you can do to your body to correct this. Look at this wonderful food you can eat. Look at this way you can think. Look at the way you can raise your babies. Look at the way you can do this. And it's all beautiful. But they are, every single one of them is based against that backdrop of the system, which means it's based on harm. But nobody ever addresses it in who is doing really well and getting tons of views and ratings on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on everywhere. Because so it's like there's this myth that everyone does want to still believe it. It's like, no, we can still keep going as we are. We've just all got to get healthy. We've just all got to get conscious. But what they don't realize is if we're going to keep living the way we're living in our beautiful, well, conscious lives, we still need someone to take out our garbage. We still need someone on night shift in the hospital. We still need someone in the bank organizing our money. We can't all be rich because then no one would do the shit jobs. So, we can't all be well because then the hospitals wouldn't be needed. It's like, but this is never addressed because it would be so unpopular.
We addressed it all through the 20 years of our work.
Or maybe not quite it.
And they've tried everything to shut us down and blacklist us and accuse us of we're cults.
But the point is, it's just too hard for most people to look at. They don't want to look at, oh shit, I've got to completely turn my life upside down. I've got to stop. In the end, I've got to stop using plastic. I've got to stop using all this. I've got to grow my own food, or with the group grow food. And it's just so daunting. And that's why it doesn't gain any popularity, I think.
Yeah, because the look has to be within yourself, not without, not outside of yourself, but inside.
I think my point was it's this like collective denial that we can still keep living in the system, but we can be well, we can be awake, we can be conscious, we can be all these things, but the two just don't mix. You can't have both. No, you can't have both.
It's all the destructive emotions of fiction, the doubt, the uncertainty, the distrust, the fear, the greed, the selfishness, the fantasies, illusions, delusions, the apathy, the denial, the misery. Look, it goes on and on. All these are fictions. We have learnt from observation or been exposed by others who wanted us to be affected by them. The saturation of fiction comes out of it. You don't have this in nature. Nature does not carry this kind of stuff. It doesn't. But we can disfigure nature. We can corrupt it more and more and more and distort it. But its original essence is still there, and it doesn't have this fiction. So we have to get outside of the ABC 1, 2, 3 and all the scripts. We have to start to really feel things from a bigger picture so we can see a way to navigate out of this mess. So that's what we're all about with the Kingdom Dream, to show that we can do it in small steps as fast as possibly can to create the infrastructure of a village life where we can, as a group, undo as much as we possibly can from supporting fiction and to raise children who are not brought up by fiction and not going to be attacked by fiction. The idea of authority is fiction. There's never been an authority over another man ever. Only a man-made intention invented that. The idea that some are chosen and others are just sheeple, some are shepherds and others are sheep, is man-made. It's all part of this agenda, this whole duality construct that we've been dumped at for so long, where the as above, so below keeps us trapped. Oh my God. Okay, here, I'll give you a few. I've got to work. I've got to make money. And yet I'm someone, I'm just talking hypothetically here. I love nature. I love to get out and look after nature, but I have a car. I have a whole lot of tools that are all made out of fiction. And I have a home, and I have a garage, and I have this and that, and I have, what I'm getting at the fiction swamps the love for nature. The fiction absorbs the community. It absorbs every man, woman, and child. And it disfigures us. It totally makes us go into amnesia. And we then pretend that, and we actually fake it because it's all fake. We pretend that we know who we are. We pretend as imposters that we think that we know what nature is and what life is, but we don't. It's just what been put in our heads through fiction by others and their intentions. Because the evolution of this fiction is so ingrained. The Western world is fiction. It is just it's a spread of death and destruction. It's all it is. There's nothing about civilization that has the good heart in it. Nothing.
And
It's
they're
there to
more and
kill.
more distracted than ever, especially with their phones.
It's
horrendous.
And we are each responsible. So one part of us, we thought, well, we got to speak out and do what we do, and we've been doing that. Yeah, we sure in the territory of this work, we've copped everything that's possibly been thrown at us, but we're still alive. But we point this out because what's behind fiction is power and control. Right up the hierarchy is men and women with the glory of all the power, looking over everyone lost as subservient slaves, spoon-fed in fiction, because they don't know who they are. But the people looking over everyone doing it, they don't even know who they are either. And their idea of power and control, and that it doesn't matter what belief system they have, well, we got to do this because otherwise we've got chaos everywhere. They don't realize they already are the chaos that's causing the chaos to go everywhere. The only way we stop it is when we stop coveting another man, woman, or child, stop coveting nature, and we stop playing out this fiction. We stop playing it out.
And we experience genuine love with calmness.
Well, now you're going to talk about people who've got real guts, absolute guts. So for me, I speak for me. I can't speak for people to answer this herself. I can see the obvious. I've seen it for a long time since the epiphanies are things that happened for me. I realize the transition, what's got to be done here to go from the system to kingdom, to go back from this anti-life, where we say we love when we don't love, to be that love without having to even say it because we're already being it and doing it, living it. And that's why it's peace and calm, because there's nothing to say. When we stop having to say it, we have arrived back, in the rural village life. That's, to me, the only answer that I've ever been able to come up with so far, even now, all these years, 20 years later, at local. Everyone knows local. Everyone at local will not have any pedophiles mixing amongst us. Anyone that comes with bad intention will be routed out. They'll be sensed and picked up very quickly, very, very quickly. The speed of thought amongst us will be faster, and we can anticipate faster. That's love. Love. The real love, protecting and caring and nurturing, to protect the children so they don't have to be put in front of an iPod, a computer, right, listening to the airwaves and all the horrible distortions of anti-life coming through every antenna, relayed from every satellite and whatever else is out there.
So it's imperative that we focus on really getting in touch with our senses if we want to start feeling something on this earth.
Become God again. Be God. Be full responsible for life. Don't give it up. Don't pass the buck.
But do it in the doing, in the creating, not in the obsession between the ears. Do it in the getting out there, starting to grow the food, starting to create the infrastructure, starting to all that sort of stuff. Because otherwise it's just...
You're not free for going to the shops. You're spoon-fed slave and you think you're free. We've got to stop the spoon-fed system. We've got to stop being spoon-fed. We've got to take it back. Stop letting people come and distort it. Stop getting people committing fraud and slander by making accusations and things about you, what you think you like. You got to get away from all of this. Get away from all of this garbage. All these subtle innuendos of what your intentions are. Either you are living it and being it, which makes you God, full responsible, and you are that love, and it's all happening through action. There's no words. We're just doing it.
And
That's why we got to give up these podcasts at some point. We've got to stop all this as well.
And now with this power of God within you, you can go out and bless others also with your knowledge, with your intuition, with your you know what I'm saying? Like you can play God and bless others.
It's so hard for people who are addicted to fiction because it's far worse than a heroin addict.
And not make it just for yourself. You know, Bob had a saying. He said, "Live for yourself." Or live for yourself. You will live for others. You will live again. Live for yourself. You will live in vain. Live for others. You will live again. So so I think it's a lot about exactly blessing others on your path also.
But the biggest way you do that is by creating something they can experience through their senses.
Yeah.
Not something you have to talk to them about and tell them about, because as we discussed before the show, when we were waiting, so often things can be taken totally out of context, by others. And if they can't sense it, then there's no point. It's like, I know what we're talking about. I was saying how the gurus often only give like a couple of sentences to people, or one sentence.
Yes.
And they don't go on explaining, because if the person can't sit and work it out themselves, then there's no point. So basically, you want to create something that people experience through their senses, i.e. a place turned into a wonderful paradise where people can live freely, etc., etc. So people then just come and they experience that. Now, if they're not ready or not interested, they'll go away and go, oh, well, it's just a bunch of people growing their own food. That's fine. They can go away and think that. Yeah. If they are looking for something else, maybe they'll come and go, oh, wow, I've experienced something really different here. There's a different intention here. If they're not ready to sense that, there's no point in blah, 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 blah. Look, we're doing this here. We're doing that there. We're doing this here. This is why. That's why. Ha, ha, ha. If they're not interested or willing to get it, they won't.
So the fiction in tune with our senses, yeah.
The fiction is so powerful that we form placebo effects by giving our energy to the scripts, because we start to animate the scripts, and then we start magnetizing by attracting the energy to those scripts. And that's what the whole base of Christianity is all about, or Judaism and atheism, right? And the satanic, Satanism, on and on it goes, all through the Western world, all this stuff goes on. The scale of our absorption of fiction and our complicity in supporting fiction is still beyond most people's present comprehension. It's so ingrained. And, we are worse than the addiction, and the fix to that is it's almost to the point there's hardly anyone strong enough to break away from the fix. They need to fix, and everyone wants to fix, so it looks a certain way to appease the fiction of the personality that they're representing in the foreground, right? Because that's what they live for. That's why they are a goddess, or whether there's some kind of archetypal, naughty godlike creature, or something astrologically defined, or they think they're on some divine path, and they've met with their gurus and their spirituality and all that, and it's absolute crap. Because no man was ever designed to follow another man, ever. And that's why we can only show people what's wrong and how it all works. Well, we can't tell anybody who they really are. We can show all the things about, like we're even going to discuss in this chat, but we can never lead any man to be that man of the good heart. It's only unique to each of us. Where amongst us are we going to meet these brothers and sisters who want to live and break away? Yes, and that becomes an example that might inspire others, but I don't know. I'm almost pessimistic now. I think we've gone too far. I think we're living in the times now of earth-wide chaos of the worst kinds. I don't think we've ever gone this far before. I think other times we've done before were bad, but I think this one is far, far worse. It's all in here. And we when we wake up, there is no us in here anymore. There's no I, me, my, me, nothing. There's no name. There's nothing to refer to, because that's only fiction.
Yeah.
We're already being it and living it, and that's undefined. And that's how we commune with nature, and that's how everything works. So, yeah, we got to transition back to that. But it can happen quickly too if we have enough strong eyes to do it. But we're already thinking, well, we're going to do it for ourselves. We're going to make sure that we set this up to how we are right now, the best we can. Because we're finding it hard to meet other people without playing all the egocentric bloody shit that we've all been infected with, because we've seen so much as we've unraveled our own stuff. And other people come along and they're not experienced because they've not practiced this yet. And we're not strong enough to cope with all these destructive influences because they're all distractions until we have a core of enough of us who are switched on from the heart, who can do things from the heart and be selfless, to be able to say, okay, let's accommodate a few of these people now who come along and help them to unwind from their self, from their ego.
But before we close this chat for tonight, Arthur, I would like to go back on what you said that was really paramount about not being loved, because often I have brought it up to my wife, to others, that why you say you love me and this and that, and they all find it very weird that I don't really relate to that love thing. But I know why tonight, because love is something you experience. You have to be love. Who's in us here tonight listening or have ever been a love in a physical form? That's what we have to reach, right?
There will be glimpses of that real love that comes through from the mother and the father. In some cases, a bit more than less, but it's so compromised by the fiction.
Yeah.
The dad's already so lost in fiction, having so many obligations and entertainment and interests. Same as you can go.
Yeah, I agree. I think none of us really are truly capable of unconditional love. I mean, I think the most probably unconditional love we have is with our children, but even that, we still bring, which is kind of what I said earlier, we still bring so much of our own stuff into our parenting that we're not truly, even though we do love them forever and for always, we are still tainting them because we bring our shit and we dump it into our parenting. And so therefore you could say that it's not truly unconditional love, because we're not able to just love them completely and let them and show them just by example of everything living around them and the exposure to nature that they got, who they are and what they are, and give them that experience. We all taint our children in some way. Even though our hearts are sincere in loving our children dearly, we absolutely all bring stuff to our children that damages them without a doubt. Even if it's just we totally expose the fiction in their lives and celebrate the fiction in our lives, even though that's usually done totally unconsciously, it's still actually celebrating their destruction when we celebrate the fiction. Yes, I do it. Yes, you got your university degree. Yes, you're a lawyer now. Yes, you're this. Yes, you're that. But ultimately, really, that's their destruction. And because it's all of our destruction, because it's maintaining the fiction, it's maintaining the system that is the destruction of everything that we really are. So yes, that unconditional love, it exists in nature, but it doesn't exist in the system.
Exactly. And I am good. I like that you pointed out, because also it has to go by experience. Once you have experience like me by your parents that unconditional love doesn't exist, well, you start to look for unconditional love. And I found it in nature. I know now I'm not going to find it with my mother. She doesn't want to speak to me because of what I do, or because I didn't get the job, or whatever it is, her reason in her head. But what I do is too much. So, she cut all ties for 5 years. You think that's freaking normal? No. But that's because she's deeply programmed and deeply into the evil state of the system.
Well, that's what people bring here when they come to visit us and they want to do community, but they bring all that sort of stuff with them. Because there's 1,001 ways it can be expressed, this egoistic, destructive, sirens on the island kind of influences.
I think also we have mistaken love for sentimentality and emotion, because that is so much, we see a couple and it's all like, oh, but I love him, and exactly. Oh, he's got, and we think that's love. And as I said, we think we love our children, we destroy it. We think we love nature. Whereas if you look in nature, there isn't sentimentality. There isn't emotion.
No, there's very none stoic.
Of that.
Very stoic and calm.
even though, yes, we've seen cows that weep when their calves are taken from them, elephants that it's not that sentimental mush. That's just an expression of the sadness of the situation, and they move on.
Eventually.
They move on, and
they don't forget.
They don't. I mean, our neighbor has a bull, and a beautiful bull she rescued from very young, and he had a companion, a cow, for many years, and they were devoted, and the cow died, and our neighbor said he stood by her body for a week. So they absolutely, there's that's love and attachment in that way. But in general, nature is not sentimental, and nature is not, it's not emotional and mushy. And we've got more and more from the constant exposure through media and social media. It's mushy. That sentiment is mushy, and love is mushy. Love is sentimental.
Yeah,
that's why we have Valentine's Day, where we have to declare our love, and that's all fake, because love isn't something declared on a special date.
Yeah, because they've been all exposed to the soap operas and Hollywood.
Exactly.
And all the different scripts of performances of love and emotion and anger, and it's all modeled on what they're seeing through fiction instead of directly experiencing it with nature. And that's look, the whole of the system is a scrapyard. It is the largest garbage tip ever made by man. All we can do is to assemble a scrapyard, we call it Kingdom here, where we can salvage from the junk pile whatever we can of us. That's because it's all anti-life. You follow? Everything of the system is to alter and distort the original purpose of every living thing and turn it into something else, which is intellectual property defined by a man's intention, who believes that is the right version, that's the right way, this is how it should be, right? And we go in and use this, the misuse of our free will, the misuse of our responsibilities to destroy, corrupt, and do the most terrible things we do to nature, which is what we are. So. Yeah. To me, the only thing we can do is, and we should really call it "Welcome to the Scrapyard." Yeah. If because anyone who turns up here is going to be coming from the scrapyard, and they want to undo that destructive element and transform it into nature. Whether we recycle it back into nature, into life itself, because that's the transition. Anything less, anything outside of this, is just bullshit. It doesn't matter what it is, because the idea of local council is fiction. The idea of state government, well, all the things we talked about in the last show, we are it. Why give that responsibility away? Why do we want to support a way of life where we need to be spoon-fed by others who are already spoon-fed, to be in the production line, to manufacture all the garbage that comes to us as food, comes to us as water, comes to us as information and education and research and science and all this. It's like a conveyor belt of endless garbage.
Conveyor belt of nonsense.
Just absolute destruction, death. It's so sick. But we have the ability, as much as we've caused it all, we have the same power to stop it all. But do we want to stop it? Which means, do we want to let go of all this addiction to fiction? I mean, we get a lot of people who have opinions, and they believe their opinions are worthwhile, but they're all fiction, and it's used to create conflict, where they have conflict with each other. We don't know how to find peace with each other, which is a natural thing that happens through that superintelligence that fills us. It's undefined. You can't define it. So there's no journey. There is no divine path in that way. It's all bullshit. Anything that's been explained as the heavens and the gods, it's just absolute garbage. It's a man-made thought form, a placebo effect floating in the atmosphere and affecting everyone who's feeding it and thinking it. But it doesn't exist. All this afterlife, people are dying with the white lights and all that. It's all fake, man-made through the occults. It goes on and on. The scale of these placebo effects that deceive us is beyond most people's present comprehension. It really is that. I can't prove it to you. All I can say is I've experienced this. I've directly sensed it and experienced it, and I can see the lie. I can see the truth of it as well. But we have to undo. The only thing we can do we want to take responsibility to stop supporting fiction and start creating ways of life where we don't rely on that fiction anymore? Go local again. where everyone knows each other, where we grow everything to each other, where we look out for the greater good of the village that we are part of, so it takes care of all of us, where we all grow everything, produce everything, make the clothes, do all the work and facilities we need for people's homes. Learn how to live in the most simplest forms of homes again that don't rely on the fiction anymore, where we can produce children who might not even want homes anymore. They might prefer to be nomadic again. Doesn't matter. The point is we've got to do something to break away and be seen to be doing from the biggest picture. That's what wakes us up, makes us wake up and go to bed every day. We live for that bigger picture, not for making the money, have a superannuation fund and a retirement plan, go on a Kon-Tiki tour, go and visit some of the islands and be part of the destruction that's spreading chemical mess and shit to those islands that should have been left untouched. No more going to Mars. And
that will be it for tonight. I have to leave soon. All to say that the arm, yes, there is harm being done out there, but I think the most thing we're harming is ourselves. So stop harming yourself. Stop destroying. Stop killing yourself with all their nonsense food, GMO stuff, and reinstall nature within you. And I think that's a great starting point to a massive awakening for all of us if we start taking care of our bodies the way it's intended. And then we will take care of the earth the way it's intended. I have hope for humanity. I'm not hopeless. I have hope for myself, so I can see hope out there. But it's going to take a massive effort. And we're going to need to be vocal. We're going to need to be vocal. And people are going to need to freaking listen. So
I think it's too late, mate. I think I was just like you right up until last year. I'm seeing the writing on the wall now. I'm not only just seeing it, I'm seeing the waves of what's coming, the devastation. We have done it because very few of us want to unplug. That kind of waking up to undo ourselves from fiction it could be to the point now where everyone believes that fiction is part of reality and they love it, which means they continue to love what they don't really love at all, which is life itself.
Oh, that's a good one. They keep loving. Repeat it again.
I can't even remember.
You said they continue to love what they don't really love, or something like that.
Yeah, you said something like that. Anyway,
I was just in the moment.
You give so much wisdom sometimes that I have to write it down. Just like you said at one point, you don't know what love is. You've never been loved. You've never been loved.
No.
Like I was like, fuck, that's true.
I've just seen everything. I was all amazed. I was all there. Yeah. I've experienced everything that isn't love through this life, through this vessel.
But
there's little of real love. We are loved. Don't get me wrong. We are loved.
Yeah. One day you made me realize also, and that I will always remember, that you told me that one day you will realize that your dream doesn't matter. And I did. And that was all part of the fiction, like that motivational speaking thing I wanted to do and stuff. I was talking to you about it, and you said to me, you will realize one day it's not about it. So it's all
we can't save it. It's true. We can't save anybody. And that's why I'm saying about it. I've left it too late or whatever. We tried everything to wake people up, but we're not rescuers. You've got to be it. That's where you have to be it. And you will know where you need to be to avoid what's coming. And as it comes in the moment, you'll hear it in the wind. You'll hear it in the bees.
We'll hear it in the wind.
We'll hear it in the birds. We will know.
I like
and
this.
You won't be able to go to some books to refer to it or anything. It'll just be something you just act on it out of just true love and just do it, whatever it is, and do it because that's how I've kept us alive through all the attacks that were thrown at us. You wouldn't believe the stuff we went through, but that's I've already covered in other videos. But we have the ability to get out of this. We all can. Is there enough is willing to undo their addiction to fiction?
Yeah, that's it.
Even if we have to transition that undoing through 20 years, 15 years of building up the village, and so we can't just collectively let it all go.
Yeah.
But something has to happen about this, and it's like now. It's got to happen now.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't.
Anyway, Large Up, thank you for your presence, your full presence and power again on the TruMon Show. Just stay on a bit. I'll say 2-3 words to you before you disappear from the online chat.
Thanks for this chat. I've really enjoyed it.
Hey,
Really
it's
good having
me
Pete.
too.
It's really
You
good having
said,
Fiona here.
yeah, you said some paramount stuff tonight. I even like it's epiphany for me because I've always trying to reason about that love thing, and tonight you made it very clear. You've never been loved. Like you're not being loved. So how do you want to be loved? And how could you be loved if you've never been loved? Like it's anyway. It's
Can I just say that when we are really being that love, we don't have anything as a friction to play it with anyone else about anything.
Exactly.
We don't even question anything anymore.
And we don't have any expectations for anyone because we don't need anything.
Because there's a real peace and calm. We've become that we are. Doesn't mean that we're doormats, or doesn't mean we're apathetic, or you know.
I think that's a lot of the problem in today's world. We all want so much from others. We're so needy of other people.
Spoon-fed, isn't it?
That just causes so much of the problem. But Janet has to go.
Yeah,
I know we're talking about love, but I love you guys. I cannot say otherwise. I love you.
We love you too, Janet.
Yeah. It's a genuine love. It's genuine. I have experienced real love. I think so. I think I'm on my way there. So yeah.
We all are, mate. That's the real awakening, the real one.
Boom. We're up. See ya.
Bye.